Welcome to an all-new episode of SJHL Insider. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jeromy Clark, Director of Media for the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. We have a jam-packed show for you today, literally. We had a Monday off, a rare Monday off when it comes to the SJHL Weekly. So as a result, we are loading up SJHL Insider today, and we're going to be joined by our co-hosts for SJHL Weekly, both Jamie Neugebauer and Rory McGouran on the show today. So a double dose of guests on SJHL Insider, but lots to get to when it comes to the world of the SJHL since the last time we have had a show. So no time like the present then to get right into it, but we have to give a big shout out to our sponsors quickly first. Chevrolet, Capital Auto Mall, Cantera Seeds, RBC, SaskTel, SGU, Direct West, Tourism Saskatchewan, SGI, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Young's Equipment. Thank you so much for your support, because again, without your support, these shows would not be possible. So thank you very much. Time to bring in our co-host, Clark Monroe. Clark, how are we doing today?
Wonderfully. We're doing wonderfully. Wonderfully. Yep, wonderfully. Okay. You know, it's really freezing cold outside, but that just makes being inside a nice warm building that much better. I
was going to say, that's partially why I went with the SJHL hoodie today.
Yes.
Bit brisk in Saskatchewan.
A little bit cold.
Hopefully everybody is staying warm, but because this is a jam-packed show, let's get right into your favorite segment.
Yes, we have to get right into it. The hat trick, everybody.
Hey, no sound effects. Commissioner Kyle is going to get mad at you.
Sorry, Kyle.
If he doesn't get mad at you, then I'm going to get mad at him because he only got mad at me then.
Yeah, and then it's playing favorites.
That's not fair.
We don't want that. We don't want that happening. I don't think Kyle's a pretty impartial guy, so I don't think that'll happen. He'll get mad at me. We're starting to see X's in the standings, and I know we're going to get to that in a second. There's a lot of interesting things happening on the ice, but there's also some stuff happening off the ice. So for topic number one, Jeremy, I'm just going to call it news and notes.
Yes.
And we'll go from there. Now, there are some things that happened, so I'll let you get into it.
Yes. Lots of news and notes in the span of the last 48 hours, really, in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. First and foremost would be the announcement which came out Tuesday morning, or was that yesterday?
It's all blurring
Wednesday
together
morning,
for me.
Where the Kindersley Clippers and head coach and GM Ken Plaquin have come to an agreement to essentially part ways. So as a result, they're looking for a new head coach and general manager in Kindersley. So that's kind of some big news coming down the pipe from the Kindersley Clippers. Obviously, I mean, we've talked about the Clippers this year. Tough year for them. Maybe there's some games where they felt like they were probably deserved some better fate in the games. But, you know, it's never an easy thing. A, it's not an easy thing to talk about. And B, it's always a difficult decision, you know, for an organization to make something like this, especially with about 9 games left for the Kindersley Clippers. But assistant coach Tyler Trapdow is going to fill in for, he's going to be the interim head coach and general manager, and then they'll name a new head coach when it comes to the offseason. Also, for news and notes, and this came out this morning, very exciting, and we'll dive into it with one of our guests. Matthew Van Blaricom of the Humboldt Broncos has committed to play for Michigan Tech, NCAA Division I commitment, and I mean they continue to pile it on in Humboldt when it comes to the Division I commitments. So congratulations to Matthew Van Blaricom. I mean, he lit it up at the SJHL MJHL showcase. Yeah. And he's lit it up ever since he's joined the Broncos earlier on the season.
Reigning Rookie of the Week as well for Direct West, of course. Got to mention that. And, you know, it's great to see, because we talked about this with Riley Ash. We talked about this with Karsten Cater.
Right.
The 16-year-old talent in this province is so deep and good. And just to see another example of, you know, the stay here, play here model, for example, the hashtag stay here, play here. Just to see it pay off again is another great decision by Matthew Van Blaricom, and it's just paying off. And he's earned it. If you look at his numbers, they are wildly good. And he's just showing that, you know, there's a lot of opportunity in this league and in this province. And the SJHL paying off once again.
And I think he has and Rory can correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, he'll tell you.
Yeah, he will. He has a 0.8 points per game. So he's almost like, for his how joining the Broncos partially midway through the season, I mean, he's fit in like a glove with them. And then also to, I guess, cap off the news and notes segment, we have had 4 games in the SJHL. since Monday. And I think the two that stand out is last night, the Estevan Bruins bounced back with a big 7-1 win over the Melville Millionaires. Huge 2 points for them in the standings, as they're now kind of trying to get away from Weyburn and Nipawin as they kind of chomp at their heels a little bit.
Yeah.
But the thing I think we should talk about before we move on to the standings, Clark, we need to talk about the Battleford game on Tuesday. An 8-2 win over the Yorkton Terriers. Keon Bell.
Anything interesting happen in that one?
I mean, Keon Bell scored 5 goals. He scored 5 goals. He's up to 49.
Yeah.
And now he's 1 goal away from hitting the 50-goal mark. And he's very close to breaking his uncle's record of those 52 goals in 50 games.
He got a great opportunity.
Wow.
But it was just so funny. We were just talking about this before the show. On Tuesday night, we were... I got a couple of text messages from Commissioner Kyle, and Director of Marketing Jacob Faith was in there, and just like, wow, hey, Keon Bell got a hat trick. And we were all like, oh, great, cool. Not surprised. He's done it before. Good player, scores lots of goals. And then, I don't know, 5 minutes later, Jacob, wow, 4 goals.
4.
Wow, okay, 4 goals. That's a great night, historic night. Awesome for
100%.
Keon. 5 minutes later, 5 goals. And it just turned in, that scene from 101 Dalmatians where it's like, 10 puppies, and then just keeps going.
What a reference. You can tell who's the dad on the show.
I mean, you got to watch 101 Dalmatians.
You can tell who has kids on the show.
Great movie.
We'll have to ask Nugsy when he logs in if he's seen 101 Dalmatians.
Yeah, I'm sure he's seen it. But just just kept going. I was like, is he going to get 6? Like it got to the point where he scored his last goal with almost half the third period left. So, anyways, let's move on. Like you said, those were a couple of big games, but what they did is they affected the standings. So let's have a look at the standings for the SJHL as of today. There they are. Now you mentioned Estevan. They're kind of in that spot right now. It's kind of separating, and it's getting tighter and tighter, Jeremy. And the last few days have kind of affected it in a good way. So what would you say stands out for you right now?
Well, we continue to talk about the race for home ice advantage, I think, in the first round of the playoffs. Obviously, the Battleford North Stars right now, and with 1 more point, the Battleford North Stars will clinch first place in the entire SJHL home ice advantage throughout the postseason, as well as clinch the Global Ag Risk Division title.
There you go.
Then the battle from 2 to 5 when it comes to home ice, it continues to heat up, and we'll get into it later on in the show, but 2 of those teams are playing a home-and-home this weekend, and it's going to be a barn burner. But yeah, like I mentioned, Estevan, huge 2 points last night against the Melville Millionaires, kind of giving themselves some space from both Weyburn and Nipawin. Now, with that being said, Weyburn and Nipawin both have 3 games in hand, and if both of those teams won all 3 games in hand, then we're all tied with the same amount of points. However, it's cool to see that there's kind of 2 big races still left. And you know what? Don't count out the Notre Dame Hounds. They still have 2 games in hand on both Nipawin and Weyburn. They're 9 points back, and they still have 10 games left. So if they can get some points this weekend, and maybe they get some help on the out-of-town scoreboard, Weyburn and Nipawin have some very difficult opponents. That race near the bottom of the standings could heat up even more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think the biggest thing that stands out for me is, well, you mentioned the home and home this weekend, and we'll get to that. It's a juicy one.
Don't mention it.
I'm teasing. It's in the industry, we call this a teaser.
You learned that from me.
But if you look at the website, now I didn't show it on that graphic, but there are 5 teams now with X's beside their names.
Correct.
5 teams.
Battlefords, Humboldt, FLIN, FLON, L'Orange, Melfort, and actually good segue, Clark, as we call it in the biz, segues.
Yep.
Going from one thing to another.
Yep.
There's only one team that can clinch a playoff spot this weekend, and that is the Estevan Bruins. Now, that's going to require both the Notre Dame Hounds to lose both of their games and for Estevan to win their game. But definitely possible.
Yes.
It's definitely possible. So we could see the Estevan Bruins potentially get an X beside their name in the SJHL standings.
There you go. Now, a championship was handed out this week, Jeremy.
It was.
Did you know that?
I did.
And it's going to bring us to topic number 3. The Kids Sport Cup has been awarded.
I thought you had a graphic or something.
It could be the hat trick.
You could just play the hat trick again for Kids Sport Cup.
But yeah, the Kids Sport Cup was something we've been talking about all year long, and the 1,000th goal was scored this week. Now, the team that won the championship, obviously, almost almost
They almost
had
scored the 1,000th goal.
They
too.
almost had the universal championship of the Kids Sport Cup.
Is that what they were calling it?
I don't know. I'm going to go
the
with
universal championship when you scored the 1,000th goal and you also win the Kids Sport Cup.
And they were this close.
Wow.
This close. They were one goal away.
That would have been destiny.
But I'll let you go with who scored the goal to clinch the 1,000 and then who has won the Kids Sport Cup.
It was close to being Keon Bell.
It was.
You mentioned it.
It was.
But it was Carson Dobson of the Nipawin Hawks scoring the 1,000th goal to essentially secure another $20,000 raised this year as part of the Goals for Kids Sport campaign, as a sponsorship between Sask Energy, the SJHL, Kids Sport Saskatchewan. So Carson Dobson, so he's going to get recognized at some point later on. Before the postseason, before the playoffs, he's going to be recognized for scoring that 1,000th goal. So at the time, I think it was the tying goal in the game.
Yeah, I think
it was the tying goal in the game to make it 4-4.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the Hawks didn't win that game. But at that moment, he was very excited that it was the tying goal of the game. But if he only knew.
He was actually celebrating because he knew.
Is he? Can you confirm that with your sources?
I'm going to say yes. We'll go with it.
He was celebrating even harder.
We'll have to have Carson on the show and talk about, the
because
excitement.
He scored the 1,000th goal. Anyways, to secure another $20,000 once again for the Goals for Kids Sport, because of course every home goal this year in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, $20 was going towards Goals for Kids Sport. So Carson Dobson wins or scores the 1,000th goal, but like you alluded to, unfortunately, Nipawin was not the team that won the Kids Sport Cup.
No, the trophy is going
to the Battleford's North Stars. And I mean, they've had an unbelievable season. We were talking about their home record prior to the show. At the Access Communications Center, they have only lost a game in a shootout this year.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's very crazy. They've only lost a game in a shootout this year. They've scored a lot of goals at home, and as a result, they are the winner.
We should show the standings if we can, guys, because recently we were talking about this. I don't know, not the last time we showed. Maybe it was the last time we showed this. But for a second there, they weren't the leaders on the board, or they were at least tied.
There was I think it was the last time we had looked. L'Orange and Battleford were tied.
They were tied, yeah,
and that was. A big reason for that was after L'Orange had that massive string of home games.
It was at 109, I'm pretty sure, wasn't it?
Battleford was out on the road. Well, that's because
L'Orange hasn't had a home game.
L'Orange hasn't had a home game
like
in a month, almost.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a tie for 109.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, Tuesday played a big part in helping
a lot of goals.
The Battleford's North Stars secure it, but a lot of goals.
A lot of goals.
A lot of goals scored at home.
Shout out to Weyburn, if you don't mind me here. They have skyrocketed up this chart over the course of the season.
You're 100% right.
And we heard from Nick Nielsen, obviously, saying he had the science behind it. He had the numbers behind it. Since the Riley Morgan acquisition, I believe he said that their goals per game had gone up by like over a goal per game or something along those lines. So look at that. Weyburn skyrocketing up this chart. They almost put themselves in contention for this trophy.
That's right.
And they were, if you recall, I mean, I'd have to check the replay.
Check the archives.
Check the archives a little bit, but they were, I want to say, down 7 or 8 at one point, and they've jumped way up there. So shout out to Weyburn.
Yeah, and really a shout out to all the SJHL
all of
teams.
them.
Because it was, as you saw in the standings, it was a collective effort.
Yes.
To score all those goals at home.
Everybody was working together.
Yeah. Everyone was working together, whether they knew it or not. They were working together to raise money for Kids Sport. Another $20,000 raised. So congratulations to the Battleford's North Stars for winning the Kids Sport Cup. They're going to be presented, Clark, the Kids Sport Cup sometime in March.
Exciting.
And same with Carson Dobson, who's going to be honored for scoring the 1,000th goal. So congratulations to Battlefords. Congratulations to Carson Dobson of the Nipawin Hawks. And overall, congratulations to Sask Energy Kids Sports for putting on another great year of the Goals for Kids Sports program, because another $20,000 has been raised for kids sports and kids in Saskatchewan. But it is now time to head to the video chat line. We're pleased to be joined by the voice of the Notre Dame Hounds, Jamie Neugebauer. There he is. Jamie, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, and I gotta say, the Estevan committee for the Centennial Cup,
there you go.
This hoodie is the most comfortable hoodie I own. So great job to Josh Biggs and the Estevan Bruins organization for putting together an extremely comfortable hoodie.
Good plug. Good plug. We like that. Well, do you know what? Next SJHL Weekly, we'll get you a bumper below your name, and we'll put hoodie expert Jamie Neugebauer. We like that. Hey, Jamie, a big win for the Notre Dame Hounds on Monday against the Weyburn Red Wings after that loss on Friday. Obviously, it was a must-win hockey game for the Hounds, considering where they are in the standings. Maybe just walk me through that game and how it was for the Hounds and what made them so successful.
Well, what made them successful is that they scored 6 goals. That sounds obvious, but
yeah.
I said to Dion, who's acting as the head coach of the Hounds right now, with Brett Pilkington, the head coach and GM, gone to the Canada Winter Games in PEI for a couple of weeks, I said, what was the difference between tonight and the game in Weyburn the Friday earlier that the Hounds ended up losing 3-2? And we were just basically saying there was not much of a difference other than they were able to beat Daza Mitchell on the night. And on Friday night, the Hounds have had their well-documented scoring troubles. At this point, we still say they only have 2 goals or fewer in 8 of the last 10 games. Only Yorkton, Kindersley, Melville have fewer goals for per game than the Hounds. Those are the teams, if you're not up on the situation, or the other team's not in a playoff spot right now. So, yeah, the bottom line is they were able to find the back of the net. Dane Proby put in 2 more beautiful goals. He was a goalie of the week winner a couple of weeks ago for a beautiful goal that he scored against Nipawin, and he scored another couple of beauties. It seems like he only scores nice goals, which is kind of funny, but they found a way to score, and they pumped Daza Mitchell with shots on Friday. They pumped him with shots again on Monday, and this time 6 went in.
There you go. Now, we've talked about it a few times. Still lots of work for the Notre Dame Hounds if they want to make the postseason. I'll ask you, because you're around the team every day, what's the vibe around the team right now when it comes to, I guess, this uphill battle? 10 games left, 9 points back of both Nipawin and Weyburn. What's the vibe around the team when it comes to, them chasing down a playoff spot?
Yeah, I would say it's a mature resolve. It's not a desperation. It's not a despair. I would call it mature resolve. And what I mean by that is they understand very much that they can't get 9 points in a game. They wish they could, but it doesn't work that way. They need help. They got some help from FLIN in Nipawin a couple nights ago. Every time Nipawin and Weyburn plays, I pay attention as much as a Notre Dame game. But, the truth of the matter is they can only get 2 points in a game. And all year, Brett and Dion and the players, their messaging has been, one game at a time. All we can do is win today. And I've sensed that to be genuine from the guys. Who isn't scoreboard watching? Anybody who says they're not scoreboard watching at this point on the Hounds is probably lying. But yeah, 9 points is a big mountain, but as I said, I'd say it's mature resolve, and they've played very, very well, with the exception of a minute here, 3 minutes there, a third period against Battlefords. Lately they've played well. They've deserved maybe more points than they've gotten. So, there's the confidence from that as well.
What do you make of this kind of race near the, the final 3 playoff spots that haven't been clinched, and of course involving the Notre Dame Hounds? Because, when I look at it, I think it's great to see some races, for the last couple of weeks of the season. It makes a lot of games interesting. But when you look at 6 through 8 and of course 9 as well with the Notre Dame Hounds, what do you make of it, I guess, for the last 2.5 weeks of the season?
Yeah, I mean, so I look at Weyburn and Nipawin relatively similarly in that their general managers, Tad Kozin for Nipawin, Cody Mapes for Weyburn. I know they wear the coach hats too, but they looked at their rosters at some point in the first half and said it's not acceptable that we don't make the playoffs, and they found ways to make very meaningful additions to their lineup. Obviously, it's hard to think of a more meaningful addition to their lineup this year than Riley Morgan. Right. To Weyburn, and you mentioned it right there, Clark. They're scoring way more goals per game just because Riley Morgan's in there. Now I'm interested to see how Riley Morgan does going forward, because I sometimes get the sense when he's playing that he cares a lot. He cares so much that he wants this Weyburn team to win that he stops using his teammates on occasion. And he needs to get away from that and trust that Ty Mason is going to be a superstar on his wing. And Jackson Hassman has 23 goals, and he knows where the back of the net is. So there's that element that he can't do it all by himself for Weyburn, doesn't need to. And for Nipawin, it's very interesting. They made some ads that I don't know have made as big of an impact as a Riley Morgan, but they got Chase Visser from the AJ. They got that James Bone gentleman from the BCHL. So they made some ads. They revamped their goaltending. Those two teams did it by, we're going to reshape our lineup and really add. Notre Dame, they made a few ads. They added Mateo Speranza. They added Isaiah Peters. They added Liam Hunks, who's been really, really good. But those guys are all rookies. They're all young. They're not going to be the reason the Hounds make the playoffs. So, what would have to, the Hounds kind of did it differently than Nipawin and Weyburn. The way that the Hounds will do it, first of all, they need to be healthy because they haven't been. Jared Sitch and Vinny Palmerine either out or just coming back from the lineup. But, I really have no idea the status of Jared Sitch this weekend. Vinny Palmerine did play against Weyburn, and there's another big difference maker there for Friday, that Vinny being back and being Vinny was a big piece of it. But they need health. They need the depth because they didn't make the same maybe ads that Weyburn and Nipawin did. So it'll be interesting to see whether they can come together and really make that run, and it's all kind of based on whether they can stay healthy.
Of course, the Hounds, they have 2 games in hand on both Nipawin and Weyburn going into this weekend. Now, they're not going to make up any of the games in hand this weekend because all 3 of those teams play a pair of games, and the Hounds will be in Kindersley and Battlefords. Maybe just preview the weekend for Notre Dame and what you kind of expect from both matchups.
Yeah, boy, is it going to be tough. First of all, I look at Kindersley, and I have this term that I don't know how widely spread it is. It's called the dead cat bounce. So a team that, has their coach let go, they're always going to get a little jolt right away. And
100%.
I think they started the game against Yorkton, and they were good. And then Yorkton found a way to rally yesterday. But that being said, Kindersley's played hard all year. Even for Ken Plaquin, they played hard. So there's no reason to believe that they're going to be any sort of defeated team under Tyler Trapto the rest of the year. They're going to be tough. They're always tough at the West Central Event Center. So the Hounds better start on time, get ready to go right now, because if they show up slow, it's going to be bad news for the Hounds. And then the next night, obviously it's the tables are turned. The Hounds are always going to be the underdogs this year against the Battlefords North Stars. The Hounds have put together 20 minutes, 25, 30 great minutes against Battlefords at times this year, and have looked like the best maybe 20, 25, 30 minutes of the year for the Hounds at times. We've had 2-0, 3-1 leads on Battlefords. They've been pumping Josh Cote or Justin Merrick, whoever it is, with shots and doing all the right things. And then 5 minutes of absolute horrible hockey. And, Kean Bell and Jake Southgate and the always Hound killer, Steve Kesslering, who just crushes the Hounds. 9 goals, I believe, and 5 assists over the year for him against the Hounds just in this year. For Steve Kesslering has just been a maniac against the Hounds. The Hounds got to find a way to put 2 60-minute efforts, against both those teams. They're kind of the slight favorite against Kindersley, the big underdog against Battlefords. They can meet somewhere in the middle. I think they'll come away, feeling good about themselves. But obviously, it's too late for moral victories for the Hounds to just be happy with playing well. At this point, they need as many points as possible and some help from FLIN as well, of course, against Weyburn and whatever helps the rest of the year. But the Hounds have played well at times against Battlefords. They've won a bunch of games against Kindersley, so I have no idea what to expect to answer your question this weekend.
That's what you love about the SJHL, though, is the unpredictability of the games, and that's what makes it exciting. Nugsy, thanks so much for your time. We really appreciate it. Have a great couple calls this weekend, and we'll see you on Monday.
Yeah, I can't wait to get on the road. It's been a long time for the Hounds. They've had a lot of home games or games in Weyburn close by, so just it'll be fun to get on the bus.
There you go. Nugsy, thanks so much for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, boys.
That is the play-by-play voice of the Notre Dame Hounds, Jamie Neugebauer. Very busy week. We touched on it. For the Notre Dame Hounds, big weekend in Kindersley and Battlefords, of course, 9 points back of the 8th and final playoff spot, tied for Nipawin and Weyburn, chasing them both down. But heading back to the video chat line, we're going to be joined by our other co-host of SJHL Weekly, that being Rory McGouran. There he is. Rory, how are we doing, bud?
I'm doing great, guys. How are you doing over there?
Just trying to stay warm. Just trying to stay warm. It's a bit brisk. Hey, Rory, we have lots to talk about when it comes to the Humboldt Broncos and the kind of the opposite side of the standings when it comes to what we talked about with Nugsy. We talked with Nugsy about kind of the race for the last couple of playoff spots. We're going to chat with you about kind of home ice advantage and the battle near the top. But we got to start with the breaking news today of Matthew Van Blaricom committing to Michigan Tech. I mean, he's been outstanding since he joined the Humboldt Broncos this year, and you've seen him since, day one. Maybe just talk about how he's been since joining Humboldt and how well-deserved this commitment is.
Yeah, what a fit immediately. Didn't seem like there was any adjustment period for him to make the jump from U18 AAA to the SJHL. The 6th overall draft pick in this June's draft for the Humboldt Broncos, and quickly emerging as one of the best rookies in the SJHL. I just wish he would have been here from the start, because 100%. Then that's a player that's a front runner for Rookie of the Year, because he's leading the SJHL in points per game by a rookie, although he's only played 23 games. They thought his development might be better in Tisdale with the U18 AAA. He was, the lead horse on that team by 20 points, I believe it was at one point. Then the Broncos make him a full-time call-up. And over the last 11 games or so, his play along with Tim Kim and Ethan Silke has been one of the most dynamic lines that the Broncos have been able to roll out. But once again, it just shows Scott Barney, the coaching staff, they give the commitment, they give the trust to these young kids, and they're ready when they come. They are so well groomed, and their hockey development is already ready for this league. And you're seeing it with Karsten Cater and now Matthew Van Blaricom going to Michigan Tech. And for the Broncos, it's the 7th NCAA Division I commit in the last 2 years. So it's really keep on churning, and Michigan Tech's getting one heck of a hockey player. But I just can't wait to see his development continue to grow, because what he's done in his first 23 games is pretty spectacular.
It is pretty spectacular. I mean, you touched on it. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, he's at, 0.8 points per game so far since joining the SJHL right now. And, like you mentioned, if he was here since the beginning of the year, he's probably in the top 3 conversation when it comes to Rookie of the Year this year. Now, he's been a big part of this Humboldt Broncos team since, joining the Broncos full time. And as a result, I know we've talked about it a few times. In 2023, there's no team hotter than the Humboldt Broncos right now. Maybe just talk about the Broncos play since Christmas and what's kind of turned around for this team compared to, maybe the 2022 portion of the schedule.
Well, when the season started, the Broncos opened up 8-0, right? Mm-hmm. They're up there with the battle for North Stars. Which team would lose that streak first? And I think you really got to lead with, I know it's a cliche thing to say, but injuries and illness throughout late October, all of November and December, right? They had a total of 11 AP call-ups, 11 different players they had to call up in order to try to get a full roster while navigating through that. Well, finally, they're healthy again, and they've won 14 of their last 16 games, including a 7-game win streak. So this is kind of play and the style that that you were expecting from the start of the year. You saw at the start of the year, and now you're really getting it back. So they're finally healthy. There's no injuries. There's no illness. Chase Cook, the lone one, is going to be back into the lineup this weekend now against the Nipawin Hawks. And you're just seeing the full potential of this roster when it's put together. Their goaltending's come together. The defense we knew was never going to be a problem. Very experienced. And they're getting high-flying offense now, second in the league in terms of goals for. And a big part of it, I think, recently is they haven't lost a second period since January 11th. So that's now about 12 or 13 straight games where if they need to make an adjustment after the first period, or they need to keep their foot on the pedal after the first period, they're finding ways to take over games in the middle of the game or correct what they need to do in the middle of the game, which I think is all preach to coaching and then leadership in that dressing room to make sure they know what they've done right or what they need to correct in order to win those games.
100%. Let's talk a little bit about that race from 2 to 5 in the SJHL standings, because, we've been talking about it week after week right now, and I'll just rattle off the points. Humboldt in second with 69 points. FLIN in third with 67. LaRange in fourth with 63. And Melville in fifth with 62 as it comes on the screen. It's going to be heated down the stretch when it comes to 2 through 5, when it comes to home ice advantage in the playoffs. But right now, obviously, the Broncos are in the driver's seat when it comes to second place. But when you look at that stretch, Rory, from 2 to 5, what kind of stands out for you?
I think it's really the FLIN Bombers and the Humboldt Broncos. maybe at one point you really do value second place. Try and get yourself away from where you think that dividing line is in terms of really, really dangerous teams that, just can't get into the home ice advantage. A Melfort, a Larange, an Estevan, maybe get away from that. But then you look at the way that Weyburn's playing of late, and you know how difficult it's going to be in the cage. Is second place really that much of an advantage over third place? I don't know anymore. What I do know is that FLIN, FLON, and Humboldt are just trying to stay in home ice advantage because how good they've been in the Whitney Forum and the Elgar Peterson Arena, that's what's going to matter. But your opponent in the first round is going to be difficult. All these teams are able to make an upset for sure. I think if they're circling one team, maybe on the financial side, you want the Nipawin Hawks. It's the closest. You're going to get the most away crowd visiting. Your crowds will be big, your 50-50s will be large. You'll get, a lot of support going both at the cage and in the Elgar Peterson Arena. So maybe that has a little bit of an asterisk on Nipawin being the preferred first-round target. But I think you're going to get great hockey if it's Estevan, if it's Larange, if it's Weyburn, and whoever. But right now I think it's just for bragging rights for second place because your opponent's going to be as difficult as any other one that you could play.
Well, and that's what makes the SJHL so great right now, especially this year. You look 1 through 8, and all 4 playoff matchups are going to be very exciting. I'll ask you then on the opposite end of the standings when it comes to the playoff spots, 6 through 8. What do you make of that race? Because last weekend it got really interesting with Estevan's 2 losses to Humboldt, Weyburn winning a bunch of games, and kind of now they're kind of sitting. There's 3 teams separated by 6 points, and both Weyburn and Nipawin have those games in hand.
Yeah, they certainly do. Weyburn's been electric. We know how hot they've been. Nipawin, they could have probably jumped past Estevan, but they're on a little bit of a cooler. They only have 1 win in February, right? A couple overtime losses, but 3 regulation losses. So they're going to try to find that ground that made them so successful the turn of the calendar. The next 2 games they got are against the Humboldt Broncos. So those will be fun games. It's a potential round 1 playoff matchup. But I know we talked about second place. From an outside league fan, who wouldn't want to see FLIN FLON play Estevan in the first round of the playoffs? Yeah. So I'm hoping Humboldt stays second, FLIN FLON goes third, and then Estevan can keep above Weyburn and Nipawin because that would be just an electric opening round playoffs and just great for the league. So in the bottom race, I'm not counting out Notre Dame either. I know they're still right in it. 2 more wins against Weyburn. You really change the dynamic of what you're looking at to get into the playoffs. So they're definitely in it, but I'm kind of more circling matchups I would love to see. And right now, as it kind of lines up, I love FLIN FLON Estevan. I love Melfort Larange. There's just some really juicy playoff matchups that are lining up. Of course, a lot can change, but that's where my eyes are kind of going.
Yeah, to quote our good friend Jamie Neugebauer, there's a lot of sexy matchups potentially in the playoffs. I went juicy matchup. Yeah, that's probably the PG way we should go with it. But you kind of alluded to it. Big home and home this weekend between the Humboldt Broncos and the Nipawin Hawks. Potential first-round playoff matchup. Maybe just preview the 2 games.
Yeah, the Humboldt Broncos, as good as they've been at home, they've been exceptional on the road, 16-8 on the season. They'll start off in the cage where it's as hard as a building you're going to play in, really short. Nipawin's super fast on their own rink. Their crowds are showing up in, gatherings. So I expect what would normally be a divisional type of matchup, although they're outside of the division, but that style of hockey. Humboldt wants to continue their winning ways, wants to continue that 7-game winning streak, wants to stay ahead of FLIN FLON in second place, 100%. And the Nipawin Hawks, they're now looking at Notre Dame as well. It's not just Weyburn that we thought maybe 2.5 weeks ago was the team they could catch. Nipawin's got to watch Notre Dame, and they're going to have to find a way to kind of get out of this little bit of a cooler they're on. I'm not worried about them, but it's big for Notre Dame, and I think for Humboldt, just status quo. The way you're playing, stick to it. First period, second period, they've been fantastic, and then they close out games in the third as well. But, I just think they just got to stick to their game plan because right now they're playing the best hockey in 2023 out of any team in the SJHL.
And regardless, both rinks are going to be electric for both of those games between the Broncos and the Hawks this weekend. Rory, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it. Have a great 2 calls this weekend, and we'll see you on Monday back in the studio.
My pleasure, pal. Stay warm over there, and we'll see you on Monday.
Stay warm. All right, that is the play-by-play voice of the Humboldt Broncos, Rory McGouran. We'll bring back Clark. Clark, we talked about it. I mean, this race, the two races, and we alluded to it in the standings, it's going to make the last 2.5 weeks of the season very exciting, because I think when you look at some of those races, and especially after this weekend, because with this weekend and Nipawin, Notre Dame, and Weyburn all playing 2 games, if Notre Dame can go out and get a couple of points, and potentially, Humboldt and FLIN can do Notre Dame some favors, all of a sudden it becomes a 3-horse race down there for the last 2 playoff spots.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
On the flip side of it, the mountain could get even taller for the climb for the Notre Dame Hounds.
Yeah, like when Rory was talking about some of the records and stuff that these teams have kind of been going through, like Nipawin, past 10 games, 3-4-3 in their past 10 games.
Yeah.
Estevan, 2-5-2-1.
Yeah,
a lot of numbers in that one. But a few weeks ago, even over a month ago, let's go that far back, Estevan, they were right in that conversation, and not that they aren't still for the 5th spot, talking about the top 5, and this unfortunate last 10 games.
I would take them out of the conversation for the top 5 now. They've only got 5 games left.
They've only got 5 games.
They've only got 5 games left.
But I'm just saying, like, this last 10 games has kind of put a stamp on that almost.
Yes, 100%.
And with Nipawin, how hot they were there for that stretch.
Yeah, we thought they were
going to push maybe for 6. And, now those past 10 games, now Weyburn has taken advantage of that with their past 10 games being 6-2-2. And, it's just put such more emphasis on how crazy that race has been and is going to continue to be for the last 7 or 8 games of the season.
Well, and then the potential positioning. That's where I think it gets even more interesting too, because now you have Weyburn and Nipawin tied for 7th place in the SJHL standings, and both of them have 3 games in hand on Estevan. And I teased it earlier, but if both those teams win those 3 games in hand, all those teams are tied. All 3 of them are tied.
Insane.
Which could make it, then it's like, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen when it comes to, the 1 versus 8, the 2 versus 7, the 3 versus 6 matchup in the SJHL. And I kind of like what Rory's saying, though, is you kind of just, you look at those, even you include Notre Dame in it, because they're definitely not out of it.
Yeah.
And you look at some of those potential matchups. There's definitely a lot of fun ones. There's definitely a lot of fun ones.
Ton of fun ones. And I think that's why, kind of for me over the last stretch here, that 6 through 9 battle has been almost more enticing to pay attention to than that 100%. 2 through 5. Not that the 2 through 5, the shifting of that 2 through 5 has been so crazy, because literally those 4 teams have all been basically up and down in that little 2 through 5 spot. But the 6 through 9 battle for the last month has held my attention so strongly, and it's only gotten better when I thought it might have kind of settled itself by now. It's only gotten more intriguing.
And I'll say this, I was at the game last Friday between Weyburn and Notre Dame in Weyburn, and it was a very good game.
Yeah,
very good game between both of those teams. It was. It felt like a playoff. It felt like a playoff game with the importance of it. There was a lot of urgency. Both goalies played really well. Weyburn ended up winning that game 3-2, and Nugsy kind of alluded to it. The Hounds did not play a bad game that game. Just as Mitchell played extremely well. So
he tends to do that every once in a while.
Yeah, I would say more times, more times than not. He plays. He plays very well. And so where it gets interesting too is, Rory alluded to it, is there's still those 2 more games between Notre Dame and Weyburn this season. So after this weekend, you never know. They might be even closer. They might still have those 2 games in hand, and they also might have 2 more games against Weyburn. So it's going to be interesting last 2.5 weeks of the season. Let's get into the weekend matchups. We've kind of looked at a few of them because we've had both Rory and Nugsy on to talk about Humboldt, Notre Dame, and some of the matchups. So let's look at the Friday schedule. Of course, Humboldt at Nipawin, potential preview of a first-round matchup in the postseason. I know Rory mentioned it about potential matchups and everything like that, and what you kind of hope for and everything. And I know we had spoken with Rory, and he personally would like to see hopefully a matchup involving a team closer by, so they don't have to travel too far.
Yeah, for sure.
But Melville against Battlefords, and I think some eyes will be on Battlefords tomorrow night, Friday night, because Kean Bell could hit his 50th goal, sitting at 49.
Yep.
Going into Friday's
and the clinch
game
of the
against
number one spot too.
And 1 point. Yes, Battleford is 1 point away from clinching the number 1 spot. The FLIN Bombers play host to the Weyburn Red Wings. That'll kick off 2 games. The FLIN Bombers currently have a 5-point edge on the Melfort Mustangs for the Sherwood division and a 4-point edge on the La Ronge Ice Wolves. FLIN, though, does have a game in hand on Melfort and 3 games in hand on La Ronge. So 2 wins this weekend, and FLIN can be very close to clinching the Sherwood division.
And another potential playoff matchup.
And another potential first-round playoff matchup.
Yep.
Big one, Notre Dame in Kindersley to take on the Clippers. And then finally, the big one, and this is another big playoff, potential playoff preview. In the 4 versus 5 matchup, the La Ronge Ice Wolves visit the Melfort Mustangs, 2 Sherwood division rivals. Boy, oh boy, the Northern Lights Palace is going to be rocking Friday night for that matchup. And then we go to Saturday, and we have another, Clark, what's it called? It's a Super Saturday. That's what it's called. Super Saturday? Yeah, I knew right away. As soon as I said that, you were like, what is he talking about?
No, because I was like, what are you referring to? Because there's a few things on this day of awesome games. I'm like, you going to say marquee matchup? What are we going with here?
Super Saturday.
Super Saturday.
Because all the teams are in action.
All the teams.
All 12 teams in the SJHL are in action. The Yorkton Terriers visit the Estevan Bruins. Of course, the Bruins, they're just a couple of points away from clinching a playoff spot. Like I mentioned, if Notre Dame loses both of their games this weekend on the road and Estevan wins their game Saturday night, they will put an X beside their name and they will clinch a playoff spot in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League playoffs, and they'll have a chance to defend their title. The Battleford North Stars will play host to the Notre Dame Hounds. The FLIN Bombers and the Weyburn Red Wings will run it back at the Whitney Forum. The second half of the home and home between Nipawin and Humboldt, that time at the Elgar Peterson Arena. And the Kindersley Clippers will play host to the Melville Millionaires. And then the second half of that home and home between Melfort and La Ronge. Boy, oh boy, we pulled up the standings, and Melfort and La Ronge right now separated by just 1 point in the SJHL standings. La Ronge currently with 63 points, Melfort with 62. The big difference is, Clark, Melfort has 2 games in hand. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing is, these 2 teams still play 3 more times this season. Whew. So, La Ronge has 5 games left.
Yep.
So,
math?
We're going to do some math here, folks. 5 minus 3 is 2. Mm-hmm. So the other 2 games for the La Ronge Ice Wolves are against the FLIN Bombers. Very difficult schedule for La Ronge to wrap up the season. 3 straight games against Melfort, then home and home against the FLIN Bombers to wrap up the regular season.
Well, they'll be playoff ready.
Yeah,
like that's the good part about that.
They'll definitely be playoff. All those teams will be playoff ready. It's always heated in the Sherwood division between those 2 teams. But Clark, a full slate of games, 11 on the schedule. What's the one thing that you're kind of keeping your eye on this weekend?
Okay,
are you going to take the obvious answer?
I'm going to go with. Well, I guess what's the obvious answer to you?
You go first.
So my obvious answer, I really just want to see. I mean, La Ronge, Melfort. Who's going to set the tone?
Yeah,
and like you said,
that's the obvious
one. Because the other one I was going to say is the Weyburn FLIN because it's an opportunity for Weyburn. I'll take that one. You can take the other one.
Okay.
It's an opportunity for Weyburn to, I guess, put a stamp on this hot streak that they've been on. If they can go up to FLIN and
get a win in the Wit,
get a win or multiple points, like more than 2, like maybe they squeak out 3 points or something along the line. You know what I'm getting at. Mm-hmm. If they can put a bit of a stamp on this hot streak that they've been on and do that, I think that's going to be a statement. I think if you can win one of those 2 games in the Whitney Forum, I think you're going to have a lot for the rest of your games remaining. Especially, and you got to think too, Weyburn's going to have some confidence just going up to FLIN and playing the Bombers. Mm-hmm. They just beat the FLIN Bombers at Crescent Point Place in Weyburn just a few weeks ago. Yep.
So they know they can beat them. But it's obviously the Whitney Forum's a different animal, and quite frankly, the Whitney Forum is this year the second hardest building to win in this year, as the Bombers have an 18-3-1-1 record at the Whitney Forum this year. So that plays. I mean,
they don't call it the zoo for no reason.
It's true. The Whitney Forum's always a very difficult place to play. Those fans, that fan base, that community always makes it very difficult to play. As you get closer and closer to playoff time, it gets even more difficult.
And shout out to them in general for that hockey day. What was it called?
Yes, hockey night in the North, or hockey day in the North last week. Yeah, a huge shout out to the for the FLIN FLON Bombers community, because it was free admission to the Whitney Forum for the Friday night game between the FLIN FLON Bombers and the Battlefords North Stars. And honestly, you couldn't have asked for a better atmosphere. The crowd was rocking. The place was packed.
Yeah.
Director of Marketing, Jacob Faith, was in attendance. He said it was electric.
Yeah. I can only imagine.
And you couldn't, and sorry, Battleford, but that was a perfect result for the FLIN FLON Bombers that night.
Yeah.
I mean, they won 6-0. I think
Battleford's got their payback.
They outshot them 45-18, something like that. You couldn't have, I think I said it when I wrote the article, you couldn't have asked for a more perfect hockey night in the North for the FLIN FLON community.
Exactly. I mean, Battlefords did get their payback, though.
They did. They won the next night.
They won the next night. So
yes.
But that night was just perfect. Shout out to the sponsors that made that possible.
Yeah, awesome.
Like, I feel like a spokesperson for FLIN FLON here, but shout out to the sponsors that made that one possible, because that's such a cool idea. And what a better time of the year to open up your doors to the community than 6 or 7 games before the playoffs. I guess for FLIN FLON it's 8, I guess. But the perfect timing to just get everybody riled up right before game 1 of a potential series where you might end up playing Estevan, for example, if that happens, but or whatever it happens to be.
I'll say this now, and you can quote me on it. If that's the first round playoff series, you know where I am for game 1.
That series. Yeah.
FLIN FLON.
Yeah, you're in FLIN FLON.
FLIN FLON.
You're going to Manitoba.
Yeah. FLIN FLON. Yeah. That was
exactly.
You know what? In the same realm, we should also give a shout out to the community of Humboldt, because on Family Day, they also had free admission.
I saw that. Yeah,
they had free admission for their game against the Kindersley Clippers as well. So a big shout out to all the sponsors in Humboldt as well.
Let's just like put that out there as an idea that all the teams should start stealing. Get some sponsors on board, and if they want to get involved, that's a great one. Do that as a day. Like, that's awesome. Free admission. Obviously the sponsors help cover some of that. And then everybody has an awesome time, and that's a really, really, really great initiative. And I don't know who started it, but do more of it, everybody.
there you go. Marketing tips with Clark. Okay, so you took Weyburn and FLIN FLON. We got off
Weyburn, FLIN FLON.
We got off topic, but we had to give a big shout out to those communities and those sponsors, the fan bases. Yes, I'll tackle L'Orange and Melfort, because I look at this one, and for me personally, actually, guys, let's pull up, if we could pull up the standings just one more time.
Here we go.
We'll pop it up on the screen, and we'll take a look at it. But L'Orange and Melfort, they're separated by 1 point. Both those teams, so valuable home ice advantage.
Yes.
Like, home ice advantage between these two teams is extremely valuable. I think so much, a bit more so for L'Orange. I think for the L'Orange Ice Wolves, because they've been so good at home this year, and they have struggled a little bit on the road. But the thing is, with this home and home series, is this home and home this weekend could essentially decide who's going to get home ice between those two teams. Because this is a big weekend for L'Orange, because again, you have to have, Melfort Mustangs have 2 games in hand. So these head-to-head matchups are going to matter even more so for L'Orange, because even if, say, L'Orange and Melfort split this weekend, then Melfort's only 1 point back of them, and L'Orange only has 3 games left.
Yeah.
1 against Melfort and 2 against FLIN FLON, and Melfort still has 5 games left.
Right.
So it gets trickier, but so this is a very important weekend between L'Orange and Melfort if they want home ice advantage in that first round of the playoffs. And you know what? There's still lots to be determined when it comes to seeding, positioning, and all that. I have the records up right now, actually, for home. L'Orange 17-5-3-1 at the Mel. That's tied for the second most points at home in the SJHL. Melfort, no slouch either. 16-4-2-2.
Yeah. And if you look just to the right of those numbers, their streaks at home 6-0-1 for Melfort and 5-0-1 for La Ronge. They're both hot at home recently.
Well,
you know what I mean?
For La Ronge, it hasn't been recently.
It's been a minute for La Ronge.
They've been on the road for a while.
But Jeromy, just to add to your point there, just to like build exactly on what you're talking about, both those teams on the road now. Let's look at that.
Sure.
Melfort 11-10-3-1 on the road, and La Ronge 12-12-0-1 on the road. So
pretty identical records.
Very
pretty
close.
much 500.
About 500. And so when you say that home ice advantage for those teams is important, it's just stamped by, and in fairness, I guess. On the road, throughout the entire league this year, they're actually in terms of points, some of the better road teams.
100%, yes.
But at the same time, 100%. Home ice advantage when you can be a 720 team at home or a 500 team on the road, home ice advantage is huge. It's huge.
1,000%. I mean, when you only have, it speaks to how well every team in the SJHL, even the teams that aren't in the playoffs, how good they've been at home, because there's only 4 teams above 500, a 500 win percentage or point percentage at home.
Yeah.
And that's Melfort, FLIN, FLON, Humboldt, Balford. Everyone else is like La Ronge and Nipawin are both 500, but everyone else is below that. So it just speaks how valuable home ice advantage is, especially in the SJHL, because of all the different rinks. And definitely all the different atmospheres, because boy, oh boy, how many times have we said this year on this show, SJHL Weekly, any interviews, with our broadcasting friends across the league, all the great play-by-play voices, that, insert building name is such a tough place to play.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty widespread.
Almost everyone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it just speaks to how valuable home ice advantage is going to be when it comes to the playoffs. So I've got my eyes tuned in on La Ronge and Melfort. And, and then you have FLIN FLON, only 2 points back of Humboldt for second. I mean, there's lots to look into this weekend in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, with 11 games on the schedule. Of course, if you want to stay up to date in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is where you can find the video version of this show. You can find SJHL Weekly. You can find all the highlights from each and every game in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, plus more and more great features that we have coming down the pipe in the SJHL. Lots of stuff coming out, especially with only 2.5 weeks left in the regular season. And it's playoff time, Clark.
Wow.
It's playoff time. It snuck up on us. But
man, it sneaks up.
It does. The season has gone by very quickly, and there's still lots and lots and lots to be determined. And you know what else has to be determined, Clark?
You know what I was going to say is, once playoffs come around, it gets a lot closer to a certain date that I think you might be referring to.
Yes, that is what I'm referring to. What is to be determined? There it is. I'm glad the guys in the back
we were on the same page.
The same segue. You know, the Polaris side-by-side raffle, the SJHL raffle, it's underway. Tickets available until April 23rd. The big thing is, Clark, there's only 5,000 available. There's only 5,000 tickets available. So get your tickets today, sjhlraffle.ca. Like I said, the deadline, April 23rd. The draw date is April 27th, right slap in the middle of the SJHL final.
Right here on
live
SJHL Insider.
On SJHL Insider, hopefully from the Polaris dealership.
That'd be fun.
Hopefully from the Polaris dealership. Hopefully on a nice, sunny day.
In April.
Spring. Fingers. Oh, yeah. Whew.
We're so close, yet it feels so far.
Now, you're not, if you win this Polaris side-by-side, you're not taking it out for a ride in a day like today.
No. I'd rip it around in the spring, though.
Oh, the spring and the summer.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
You're driving that to work.
Go.
You're driving that to work, to the IKS studios.
I wonder what the top speed of that bad boy would be.
Do you know what?
Do you know?
You could find out at sjhlraffle.ca, where you can get all the information about the SJHL raffle and the SJHL Polaris side-by-side, which you could win, Clark, if you purchase your tickets today, because there's only 5,000 available, 1 for $25, 3 for $60.
Or if you already have them.
For $100.
Like me. I already have them.
There you go. So be sure to get your tickets
My
today.
point is, I have to drive on the ring road to get to work, and I wonder if you can rip up to 100 on those bad boys. Probably not 100 necessarily, but I wonder if you could drive on the ring road with that thing.
Producer Jordan, director Jordan, says pretty close.
Pretty close?
Pretty close.
Well, dang.
He just said that in my ear.
Let's go. I'm going to get more tickets.
There you go.
It's probably better on fuel than some cars.
Yeah.
Most cars, I would think.
In this economy,
Jeez, let's go.
we're not going to get into that. Now we're really getting off the rails.
Yeah. Welcome to. Yeah. Never mind.
We're getting off the rails.
Welcome to In This Economy with Jeromy Corrigan.
That's the other show we have. That's the other show we have at IKS.
Yeah.
Regardless, we have 11 games this weekend.
Wow.
A lot of fun.
Buckle
a lot of fun.
up.
Yes.
In your side-by-sides.
Buckle up in your side-by-sides. Before we go, though, we have to give a big shout-out to our sponsors once again, because, again, without our great sponsors, these shows would not be possible. Chevrolet, Capital Auto Mall, Cantera Seeds, RBC, SaskTel, SGU, Direct West, Tourism Saskatchewan, SGI, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, which presents our coaches' conversations whenever we have them throughout the season. Young's Equipment, thank you so much. Of course, if you can't watch the video version of SJHL Weekly or SJHL Insider, you can get the audio version wherever you get your podcast from.
There you go.
Apple, Spotify. So be sure to subscribe there today. Again, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, subscribe to our YouTube channel. 11 games in the SJHL this weekend. If you can't make it out to your local rink, if you're busy, you can catch all the action on Hockey TV. No better time to get your subscription than now, Clark.
Jeez.
Because it's playoff time. We're getting close to the playoffs.
Also, if you're busy, change your plans. Go to the games.
Right. Right. Just change them.
Just change your plans.
Got it. All right.
Having a baby this weekend? Push it off. No, not happening. We're going to the game.
Don't think it works.
This doesn't work that way? Okay.
I mean,
I should know that. I should have a couple of my own, but
anyways.
Either way.
Thanks for that, Clark.
You're welcome.
All right. So, 11 games on tap this weekend. If you can't make it out to your local rink, you can catch the games on Hockey TV. And of course, if you can't watch the games on Hockey TV, we got you covered. All the highlights on the SJHL YouTube channel. Regardless, 11 games on the schedule this weekend. Going to be a great weekend for Clark Monroe. My name is Jeromy Corrigan. This has been another great episode of SJHL Insider. And enjoy the games this weekend, everyone.